And welcome to Big Apple Hockey. I am your host, John Fulkowski, for the night. I know that I've talked about this previously, but we're finally doing it. The top 10 Rangers what ifs, moments in the history of the New York Rangers where you're asking yourself, what if this would have happened, or that would have happened, or if they didn't do this, or if they didn't deal a certain player away, or if someone wasn't hurt, someone was healthy, whether it's a game, playoff series, a season. These are moments, incidents, and things that happened that could have changed the trajectory of a game, a series, a season, or even the franchise for a decade or even longer. So I wanted to go over a bunch of those. Just remember, if you can, please like, share, and subscribe. Any help that we can get would be great for the channel. We love doing this content. We'd love to keep putting out more. So every bit helps, and we really do appreciate that. But don't want to waste too much time. Want to get into it. And I will start off with number 10 for me. And this player actually ended up becoming a Ranger, but it was a couple of years later. And there were circumstances surrounding that. They got him for a very, very cheap price. Probably one of the biggest steals in Rangers history, if you ask me, or anyone for that matter, because what they gave up to get him was nothing, inconsequential almost. So without further ado, number 10, Pittsburgh deals Jaromir Jagr to the Rangers in 2001, in the summer of 2001, instead of before the 2004 trade deadline. Give you a little backstory on it. The Rangers and the Penguins in the summer of 2001 were actually in talks and were this close to having Jaromir Jagr be sent to the New York Rangers. Yes, you heard that correctly. Jaromir Jagr was almost a Ranger in 2001. The return that was supposed to go to Pittsburgh was actually the same exact return that was dealt for Eric Lindros a couple of weeks later. So that was Jan Hlavich, Kim Janssen, then prospect Pavel Brendel, who, yeah, everybody loves Pavel Brendel because, great work ethic and everything, right? So Pavel Brendel was the third player, and there was a third-round pick also involved. That was the exact package that was sent to Philadelphia for Eric Lindros, like I stated. Craig Patrick, then Penguins general manager, was fired by the Rangers years beforehand and was not a fan of dealing with the Rangers. So there were some tense negotiations there. Patrick had pulled out of the deal last second, and then he turned around and dealt Jaromir Jagr to, as you know, the Washington Capitals. That ended up being for Ross Lupashuk, Chris Beach, Michael Civic, and František Kuchera. Now, the only player on that list with any type of notable or lengthy NHL career is actually František Kuchera, who was the oldest player in the deal. He was an established NHL journeyman at the time, was really a bottom pairing defenseman, wasn't anything good. Chris Beach was a decent prospect, but Brendel was considered by many to be a better prospect at that point, even though there were some issues. Brendel had the higher ceiling. Ross Lupashuk he played in the NHL, I think, for maybe a cup of coffee. And Michael Civic ended up really doing nothing in the NHL as well. So that ended up being a fallen apart deal that the Rangers did not get to pull the trigger on. And the reason why I ask what if is because you get Jaromir Jagr for 2.5 more seasons before that lockout. So Eric Lindros is not acquired by the Rangers in this scenario. So you got to look at what they would do to bring in another center behind Peter Nedved, or do they continue thinking that Mark Messier at 40 years old can be the number 2 center playing on a line with Theo Fleury and Mike York? Because the line more than likely would have been the Checkmates 2.0, which would have been Jágr with Peter Nedved and Radek Dvorak moving from the right wing to the left wing. So that would have been the line. You would have gotten Jaromir Jágr in his very late 20s instead of his early 30s. And you're looking at a superstar, best player in the world at the time, the reigning Art Ross winner, who led the league in points with 121 that year in 2001, who lost out on the MVP to Joe Sakic. You would have had him as a New York Ranger. So, I mean, that gives you your franchise player right there on the wing, but you still need a center, and you still need help at defense. So while I think that would have been a tremendous change for the Rangers up front, they still had other areas to address, and that's why I put this down at number 10. I have a few honorable mentions, too, that I'll do, by the way, before I reveal my number 1 what-if scenario. So I'm going to move on to scenario number 9, and that is Rick Middleton is not dealt to Boston for Ken Hodge. And this one, and hello, everybody, by the way, I'm sorry. I was in the banner section, so I couldn't see the comments. But, yeah, this one is a key one because it can help possibly change the trajectory of a team for the 1980s, even in the late 70s. Middleton was dealt for Ken Hodge because Phil Esposito, who was dealt to the Rangers for obviously John Rattel and Brad Park, wanted his friend Ken Hodge in New York. So Rick Middleton, who had a couple of very promising seasons with the Rangers in his early 20s, in the mid-70s, was dealt away. And he ended up being a guy that scored over 400 goals and over 900 points in his NHL career. So you took a young scorer that could have helped this team in the 80s, and they had nothing to show for him. Because Ken Hodge was washed up, as Steve very eloquently points out. Steve Vitrone, by the way, pointing that out. Hodge was, in fact, washed up. Esposito was on the downside of his career. But, they traded for him anyway, and he helped get them to the finals in 79. But, again, this is a deal that if you look at it differently, and again, the Middleton and Hodge deal was well before my time. The 80s were before my time as a hockey fan. So I couldn't tell you a lot about the day-in, day-out results on the ice. But you have to wonder if Rick Middleton would have been able to help get the Rangers past teams like the Islanders in the 80s and maybe even Montreal in 86. He could help get them past them. So, I mean, just looking at Rick Middleton's stats, I'll pull them up for you in a second. I mean, this is a guy that had, I believe, 5 straight 40-goal seasons, including a 50-goal season in there. So, yeah, he retired with 988 career points, 448 career goals. He had 51 goals in 1982. I mean, in 1986, he was 32, still productive. I mean, he got hurt that year, but if he's there with the Rangers, they make it to the conference finals against Montreal, and that's the Patrick Law Statue of Liberty on Tomas Sandstrom. I mean, Rick Middleton could maybe help them beat Montreal in that series. So you have to wonder how the 80s would have looked with Rick Middleton and in there instead of Ken Hodge being there for a cup of coffee and doing nearly jack squat. So that was my number 9. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. Hope you guys are all having a good night. And yeah, Rick, you're right. That was a really, really bad trade. I mean, they didn't have anybody to protect him. And I mean, the whole Dave Schultz, Dale Rolfe fight was literally a microcosm of the Smurfs Rangers back then. And I know a lot of you older hockey fans definitely are more than familiar with the Smurfs term, because that's what they were referred to, and the Flyers were the big bad bullies going around beating up everybody. I don't really want to talk about Emile Francis and his aptitude as a GM. I mean, as a coach, he's highly regarded, but Emile Francis is a legend in Rangers history, so I'll leave that at that. I don't want to sit here and talk bad about Emile Francis. Sorry, I was losing a train of thought looking at some of the comments there. But I'm going to go on to the next what if here, and the older fans will probably agree with this one as well. What if John Rattel doesn't break his ankle in 1972? I think, looking back at it, looking at what I could find, I mean, it was kind of tough to find a lot of clips on this, but reading source materials and stuff like that and going over things, I would say that John Rattel probably could have helped them beat the Bruins in 72. That not having Rattel really hurt them at 100%, and you needed a healthy John Rattel to beat that team, and they could have, and they matched up against Boston better than they matched up against someone like Montreal back then. So I honestly think John Rattel would have helped them win that Stanley Cup. If they win that Stanley Cup, maybe they don't make the trade for Esposito. I mean, maybe that stops them from doing that. And that, that was not a good trade for the team either. I mean, they might have gotten to the finals in 79 with Esposito, but how much longer of a window would they have had with Park? And would have Park helped them in the 80s against the Islanders? So, I mean, this one to me is kind of a domino effect type situation. Just my opinion. But I think you can really open up a can of worms with this one. I just think that there's more that you can kind of branch it out to. And I think that's really the big part of it, though, is I think that could really probably help prevent that Esposito trade, because I don't think they make that trade if they beat them in 72. I wouldn't. So, and then I'm going to move on to my next one here. So this one is is interesting because someone actually just mentioned it in the comments section. And this was a time in the 90s in which the Rangers were looking for a replacement for a certain man named Mark Messier. So after the 1996-1997 season, Colorado had to re-up Joe Sakic as a restricted free agent. Joe Sakic, considered by many to be the best player in the world at that time upon Mario Lemieux's retirement. Wayne Gretzky was still playing, but Wayne Gretzky was in the downside of his career. Joe Sakic had scored 120 points and won the 1996 Conn Smythe with the Colorado Avalanche when they won their Stanley Cup that first year in Colorado. Sakic was considered to be the best player in the world. I mean, Lindros and Jágr were both right there with him, but Joe Sakic was considered the man, and he was the hot product on the market. And the Rangers threw a 3-year, $21 million offer sheet at him. Colorado didn't look like they were going to match, but they had a week to do so, and they used the money from the film Air Force One, which was filmed in their home arena. Part of it, I should say, was filmed in their home arena. So they used the revenue from that movie, turned around, and matched the Rangers offer sheet, the 3-year, $21 million offer sheet that was sent for Sakic that he had signed. So if the Rangers get Joe Sakic to replace Mark Messier, you have a 1-2 punch down the middle of Joe Sakic and Wayne Gretzky. You have Alexei Kovalev on your wings. Do you keep Luc Robitaille at that point after the 1997 season, or does he go back to LA like he did? Do you attract other free agents there? I mean, this one is a huge can of worms that I open up every time that I think about this, because I look Joe Sakic is one of my all-time favorite players. But for me, Sakic in New York might have delayed the inevitable. It might have also given them a center for the next 10 years to turn around and build your franchise around. Because remember, at that time, Sakic, I believe, was 28, if I'm correct. I believe he was 28 after that season. I'll look this up now just to be sure. Yeah, he was 27. Sorry, so he turned 20. No, he was 28 around the time that they gave him that offer sheet. I'm sorry, it was right around his 28th birthday. I was correct. So, that's a really good one for me. I think that I think if anything, if you get Sakic, you have your franchise center for the next 10 years. But the question is, do they build up in the other areas that they needed help in? And they needed help on defense. They needed a goaltender that was going to be able to stay healthy and stay consistent, because as good as Mike Richter was, sometimes, even though those teams were bad, Mike Richter sometimes was a little bit of his worst enemy. So they needed help in those other areas. Mike Richter, to me, was a guy that on one night he could look like God, and then the next night he could look like, what was he doing in there? And that ultimately didn't help the Rangers. Pat LaFontaine was their plan B, and he was brought in, and then he ended up colliding with then teammate Mike Keane in practice, and that basically gave him the last concussion. So the last concussion of his career that ended Pat LaFontaine as we knew him. He was almost a point per game player that year with the Rangers as their second line center behind Gretzky. You had a washed up Kevin Stevens, who at that point was not the same player he was 5 years beforehand. There were a lot of players on that team that really didn't pull the weight that they should have pulled. And Brian Leetch and Jeff Bukaboom was a very good pairing, but after that, again, their defense was at best meh. So looking at some of these comments, and no, I don't think Neil Smith never worked again because of that. I don't think that really had anything to do with it, Lou. The offer sheet, I don't think really had the impact on Smith. Smith ended up working for the Islanders, if you guys remember that, and he was there for like a minute. And the Islanders at that time were so ass backwards that they ended up losing a lot of they lost a lot of guys in their front office, including Neil Smith, who they let go, and Pat LaFontaine, who they hired to be a consultant, was literally there for about 3 days and then said, I quit. So something was going on with Charles Wang and Mike Milbury at that time, and it led to a bunch of led to a lot of things happening behind the scenes. I heard a story about it. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's a secondhand story, and I'm not sure about how accurate it is. So I really don't want to go into that, but it had something to do with a meeting and Milbury saying something about LaFontaine, and there was a whole jumbled mess of things. I too love Peter Forsberg, Rick. I have a Peter Forsberg jersey, a Nordiques jersey. Chris, yeah, they did. They did. Rich, correct. You're absolutely correct on a lot of these. So we're going to go on to the next one here. And this is another one that's been mentioned. Zuccarello and McDonough are healthy in 2015. We all know about the Mats Zuccarello shot to the head from Ryan McDonough, who, funny enough, ended up getting hurt and ended up breaking his foot, playing on a broken foot against Tampa Bay. You have the two of them healthy against Tampa Bay. They went to 7 games without them. Could you imagine if McDonough's healthy in game 3, that crazy game where they lost, what was it, 6, I think it was 6-5 or 7-6 in overtime with the Nikita Kucherov 60-foot wrister? I mean, if they're healthy, that's probably a win, and that's probably a win against Chicago too, who they matched up incredibly well against for those 2 years in 2014 and 2015. So I would say, if anything, you're probably looking at a Stanley Cup there. This one, there's not a whole lot really to go on about, because, I mean, it's pretty much a Stanley Cup. I mean, they both ended up getting dealt, obviously. Zuccarello at the 2019 deadline, McDonough at the 2018 deadline. The McDonough deal was really one of the first, parting of ways that ended up leading to what is our current rebuild. I don't really need to say a whole lot about that. You all know a lot about this rebuild that's been going on here, the young talent that's here, and you know what? We have a bright future, but this probably, I would say, would get them the cup in 2015. And I just remember, hearing about Ryan McDonough playing on that broken foot, and you can just see the way he was skating. Something wasn't right. It's like Victor Hedman. Like Victor, you knew Victor Hedman wasn't healthy, but he was gutting through that. And good on Victor Hedman. He ended up winning that second Stanley Cup. A lot of the guys in the team picked up the pace around him. McDonough, actually, him and Chernak were Tampa's best pairing in this playoff run. So it's funny we're talking about Ryan McDonough, and he ends up winning 2 Stanley Cups in a row. Maybe his value increases if they win that cup in 2015. Who knows? I mean, Zuccarello, it's another one. Maybe the value increases. I mean, they have cup winners on their resume. It kind of adds to it to a point. Maybe not. But Ryan McDonough and Matt Zuccarello would have gone a long way in 2015 towards helping this team win a Stanley Cup. And I would really put good money on them winning the cup with them healthy. Because Hank found even though Hank was kind of not himself, I would say, against Tampa, he found his stride when he came back from the injury. And that's another thing. I mean, Cam Talbot filled in wonderfully for him in 2015 down the stretch run. But what happens if Henrik Lundqvist doesn't get hurt there? That could change things. But I'm going to go on to the next one. And I think somebody's mentioned this. But yeah, I think someone's mentioned this. I think the same person might have mentioned this earlier on. The Rangers draft Vladimir Tarasenko or Cam Fowler in 2010. And the reason why I don't put names like Jaden Schwartz and Evgeny Kuznetsov there are because of the fact that Evgeny Kuznetsov was drafted so late in that round. He wasn't a guy that was mocked anywhere near the Rangers pick in 2010. You could say whatever you'd like there, but he just wasn't. He was picked later in that round for a reason. And really, Vladimir Tarasenko was a goal scorer that they were missing in 2014 and 15. They needed another guy that could put the puck in the net consistently. Marty St. Louis was he still had that little bit left in the tank in 2014. But Rick Nash was really the guy when it came to goal scoring. Who else was really like the legitimate goal scorer on that team? Chris Kreider wasn't established yet in 2014. I mean, he had the real good run in 2014 in the playoffs, but he wasn't an established 25 goal, 30 goal guy or anything like that. Tarasenko would have been that, and he would have been that for the Rangers. They could have used him both of those years. So Vladimir Tarasenko would have been a guy, and then Cam Fowler. If you have Cam Fowler, you don't need to go trade for Keith Yandle in 2015. So instead of not having a first-round draft pick for 2014, 15, and 16, or 2013, 14, 15, and 16, because of the Rick Nash trade, Columbus drafted Kirby Reichel with their pick in 2013. You're only missing 2 years worth of picks from the Marty St. Louis trade. Keith Yandle isn't dealt for. Cam Fowler's there, and Cam Fowler and he's an established puck mover and power play guy at that point. And you would have to say he's probably near Keith Yandle's level. The only issue with it is you still have the ass clown of a coach who didn't want to use Keith Yandle in the power play. So does he do the same thing with Cam Fowler? We don't know. But I will say this. Either one of those two would have helped a hell of a lot more than the guy that they actually took. And that goes without saying. So even if you're taking someone else other than these two, I mean, I really could have changed this to anybody but McElrath, and I think the point would stand. But I like using these two because these two were picks that were scheduled to go around that area. They ended up going around that area, and they were both major needs that the Rangers needed. Kuznetsov was too. They could have used the center, obviously, but I just think with Kuznetsov's off-ice habits and his lack of maturity, I think these two are the two that you would have wanted to get. So I'm going to move on to the next one. And I think this one's been discussed ad nauseum. And I know that I'm pretty sure, again, it was mentioned. So got to talk about him. It's a name that you guys know that I hate bringing up, but we're going to bring him up again. And no, I'm not talking about Jack Eichel. I am talking about Hugh Jessiman. What if the Rangers draft Ryan Getzlaf in 2003? I mean, I know that people will say, oh, well, Zach Parise, Mike Richards, Corey Perry. I mean, yeah. But Ryan Getzlaf ended up being the best player of the bunch. He ended up being the guy with the most longevity. He was the guy that played the premium position that the Rangers still needed help with. Eric Lindros, you didn't know what was going to happen with Eric Lindros. He didn't play a lot of games in 2000, or actually he did play games in 2003. 2003 was the one season where he didn't miss games, but he wasn't nearly as productive as he was in 2002 with the Rangers. He was about a point per game in 2002, had almost 40 goals with them that year on the fly line with Theo Fleury and Mike York. But Lindros didn't have a lot of talent around him. That 2003 team missed. They needed talent badly, and getting Alexei Kovalev did not help them like they thought it was, because Alexei Kovalev, for some reason, just couldn't perform in New York the way that he did in Pittsburgh and in Montreal. So, whoa, hold on a second. Wait, Rod Gilbert just passed away? Holy crap. Jeez. Now I've got to look this up. Oh, Hold on. Now, yeah, I'm kind of a little confused. Sorry, guys. I just want to. Wow. Yes. Jeez. Wow. I am floored. That's awful. Wow. Rest in peace, Ralph Gilbert. One of the guys that you could truly say was Mr. Ranger. Um, that's awful. He was before my time, obviously. Some of you guys in here are you probably watched a little bit of him, and yeah, it's. I just saw the tweet as well. Awful. Between Hank's retirement and Rod Gilbert passing away, this just it's not a great weekend for Rangers fans. It's awful. I mean, he like I said, he's a legend. He really is one of those guys, one of the three players that I could say that I think of when I think of what it means to be a Ranger. I think of Henrik Lundqvist, I think of Rod Gilbert, and I think of Adam Graves. Um, I mean, those are three guys that on and off the ice were just incredible. Brian Leetch would be up there too, but I mean, those three are the three that I think of. And Gilbert was a career Ranger, never played a game for another team. Um, was a part of one of the greatest lines in NHL history, the goal game line, or the gag line, as they were referred to, with John Rattel, Dick Hadfield. I mean, that line in '72 was just ridiculous. They were that good. And my uncle actually had the pleasure of meeting him at a golf outing. He used to have like a charity golf outing, and my uncle got this little mini goalie hockey stick. It was like a little wooden one, and Roger Barrett signed it. It was great. Uh, he was just a great player. He really was. The stats on him are truly phenomenal. He's just someone that means so much to the Rangers organization. I'm kind of at a loss for words, as if you couldn't tell. So this is just sad. Yeah, I mean, he was one of those players, one of the best players I think that I've ever seen, that ever come across, that never broke the 100 point mark. I mean, he had 2 years of 97 points and just didn't break the 100 point mark, but he was the epitome of class on and off the ice. That was somebody who was just a phenomenal player, an even better person, and the Rangers organization is just left with a heavy heart right now. Rangers land, Rangers, all Rangers fans. It's just a sad moment. It's just a truly sad moment. I don't have a ton. I gotta say, I'm actually gonna text Mark and let Mark know. But it just a sad moment in Rangers history. I don't know what he passed away from. I mean, my condolences to his family, his friends, all Rangers fans everywhere. It was a huge loss for the organization. I imagine opening night there will be a lengthy tribute to him, as there should be. That's someone that definitely defines what it means to be a Ranger. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try to get back to this because I mean, when we could definitely do some Q&A, and I'll go over some comments after I get done with the list, and we could talk more about Rod. But I want to get back to this and just finish it up. But to get back to this one here, Jessiman's the biggest bust in Rangers history. There's just no doubt about it. You took a player that was a one-year wonder in Dartmouth at that time, the weakest college conference in all of the NCAA, and you took a home run swing on a player that you couldn't afford to take. You couldn't afford to take that because the prospect cupboard was bare at that time for the Rangers. I mean, Dan Blackburn really wasn't a prospect anymore. You were looking at like Jamie Lundmark, Fedor Tutin. I mean, that was really the cream of your crop back then. And that was just terrible. You needed more. And instead of, taking more of a surefire player in Getzlaf, they decided to go off the board with a player that really hadn't proven himself outside of 1 year in a weak NCAA conference. It was just the wrong time to do it. If they take Ryan Getzlaf there, you're looking at, I would say, more playoff appearances. You're looking at having someone that's probably your team captain. If you get Jaromir Jagr the following season, Jaromir Jagr could end up playing with Ryan Getzlaf, and maybe you're not looking at Martin Straka. But Ryan Getzlaf is on the verge of breaking 1,000 career points. So for a player that had that type of career as compared to Hugh Jessiman's career, I mean, Ryan Getzlaf needs 18 more points for 1,000. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Probably not. I don't think the numbers are good enough. He had a couple of really good seasons, and he was like a point per game for quite a few seasons, but I don't know if his numbers are necessarily Hall of Fame. Never won any individual awards. He has won Stanley Cup. I believe he's got gold for Team Canada, I believe in 2010. I'm not sure about 2014. I don't think he was on that team. But you're looking at a player that was one of the better players of his generation, and the Rangers got absolutely nothing in Hugh Jessiman. So you're talking about going from here to here in terms of production, and it's the cap is obviously massive. It's those two are not even in the same strat. Oh, Jessiman's not even in Getzlaf's universe. He isn't. So to get production out of that pick would have been huge for the Rangers for the next 10 plus years. And I will move on to the top 3. This one, I consider it the worst trade ever. I know people say Middleton for Hodge was more lopsided, but I think this one hurt the Rangers more because of the fact that it changed a decade that would have given them more chances at more Stanley Cups. But they were so obsessed with keeping 1994 alive that Neil Smith made some real bad moves. And part of them were at the behest of Mark Messier. So Peter Nedved and Sergei Zubov not being traded for Luc Robitaille and Ulf Samuelsson. Now, with that said, you look at this trade and you would say to yourself, "Oh, well, Luc Robitaille, that's a great name," and you look at Robitaille's numbers and you say, "Well, they're not that bad." No, but no, and nobody was expecting 1993 Luc Robitaille. 1993 Luc Robitaille was not an outlier, or it was an outlier, I should say, because that was Luc Robitaille at his very best, even when Wayne Gretzky missed a big portion of that season in 93. So for me, Ulf Samuelsson, good defensive defenseman, but he was in the back nine of his career. And he ended up playing with the Rangers for another maybe 5 years, and then he was gone. So you took two players that were younger, that were productive, especially an 89-point defenseman in 1994, who was the team's leading scorer that year. And you traded him away for two veteran players, which the Rangers have. The Rangers had everything lined up for them in the future. I mean, Peter Nedved could have been a real good player, and he came back and was a good player with the Rangers. But Messier wasn't a fan, and they got smacked around by the Flyers in '95. And this was a panic reaction trade, and that's why I think a lot of fans, when they see what's going on with Tom Wilson, they look back to that. Because in a way, it is sort of like that deal. Whether you want to admit it or not, it is. So you're looking at two players who could have helped the Rangers for another 10 years, and the Rangers defense was their Achilles heel for a long time. Sergei Zubov ended up becoming a lot better of a defenseman overall in the years after playing in Dallas under Ken Hitchcock. So Sergei Zubov would have helped them big time, and Peter Nedved would have given them a number two center that they needed. They tried Ray Ferraro there in '96. They dealt Ray Ferraro away despite him having good chemistry with Alexei Kovalev. Don't know why, but they did. And then Robitaille didn't perform as well, even though he performed, but he didn't perform as well as he should have. And he ended up going back to LA. So if you take the two of them, do you beat Detroit in '97? Do you beat Philadelphia in '97? Do you beat Detroit after that if you beat Philadelphia? I don't know about that. But I do know that Nedved would have helped at center behind Gretzky after Messier left in '97. So that much is for sure. And Zubov would have helped shore out the team's defense for a while. But I'm going to move on to the next one because I could discuss that. I could discuss that all night. So, but this one, these two are very controversial. The first one, because of the fact that it basically reconstructs an entire team and changes an entire decade plus if this happens. And that is the arbitrator Larry Bertuzzi, uncle of former Islander Todd Bertuzzi, awarding Eric Lindros being traded to the Rangers in 1992 as opposed to the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, to give you background on what that would have been, it would have been Tony Amonte, Alexei Kovalev, Doug Weight, John Van Beesbrook, first-round picks in 1993, 94, 96, and $12 million in cash. And now with that, if John Van Beesbrook is awarded or is declared a unrestricted free agent, James Patrick would have replaced him in the deal. So you're taking, at the time, the team's number two defenseman, their top goal-scoring winger in Tony Amonte, they're arguably their top prospect in Alexei Kovalev at the time, Doug Weight, another very good, young, talented Ranger, and then 3 first-round picks and cash. And yeah, that trade may have killed the Rangers, but you can build that team up differently. So instead of having all those guys, you're looking at Turcotte, Nemchinov being given more, Adam Graves. I mean, did they win the Cup in '94 if that goes through? Maybe, maybe not. But you have Eric Lindros and Mark Messier as your number one and number two centers for probably a decade. You probably don't trade for Wayne Gretzky. You probably don't sign Wayne Gretzky at that point. I mean, you probably keep Pat Verbeek. Pat Verbeek probably stays as a Ranger because you're going to need wingers. maybe they don't win the cup in '94. They probably don't, but I think they could have possibly won maybe another cup or two further down the road. And you know what? Having Lindros in those prime years would have helped the Rangers. It really would have. But again, it's a what if for a reason because it didn't happen. And the trade that ended up going through helped the Quebec Nordiques, or as we refer to them now, the Colorado Avalanche, win the Stanley Cup twice. Because Peter Forsberg was a big part of that. Mike Ricci was a big part in 1996. Kerry Huffman, Steve Duchesne, Ron Hextall. I mean, all the names that went through. Chris Simon was in that trade. And we know what happened with Philly with Eric Lindros. They got to the Cup Finals in '97. Lindros won the Hart in '95, but they didn't win the Cup. And then there was a nasty divorce in 2001. And that's something that you guys should all stay tuned for because this upcoming week, our episode of Big Apple Hockey is going to be the 10 nastiest breakups in NHL history. We've got some interesting ones on that list. So definitely stay tuned for that. Also, getting back to this, now, with all those players gone, so there's no Amonte, there's no Kovalov, there's no Waite, there's no Van Beesbrook. You still have Mike Richter. You still have Darren Turcotte. Again, like I said, Pat Verbeek probably ends up staying there. They probably end up getting, him. What happens if they go out and they then get maybe someone like a Brendan Shanahan or someone like that? There's other options and other moves that they can make at that point. So, I mean, you're looking at a completely different team, but you might be looking at a team that has a core that can win multiple cups further down the road. I don't know if Messier is in his late 30s by that point or in his mid 30s as opposed to being 33, winning in '94, but you get the point. And I'm going to do some honorable mentions. Some ones that I thought of that I didn't think they weren't top 10 material to me, but they were ones that I thought of. And the first one for me was Alexis Sharapanov doesn't pass away. And I put this because Alexis Sharapanov was, to me, going to be a bona fide NHL superstar one day. I was a huge fan of him. I watched a lot of footage on him, a lot of highlights, read up a lot about him when the Rangers drafted him. I was familiar with him before that draft. He actually won Best Forward at the World Juniors in 2007. He had 5 goals in 6 games for Team Russia. And he looked like a man amongst boys because he broke Pavel Bure's Russian Super League record for most goals by a rookie. And he was on a trajectory to be an incredible, incredible player. But unfortunately, a player was taken from the Czechia from the Czechia arena. A player was actually the EKG was taken, and it was another player that was taken out on the ambulance. The defibrillator EKG was not available. Just a piss poor incident, a miscarriage of things. Just unfortunate tragedy. I had his jersey. I ordered it from RussianJerseys.com. I got it in June of 2008. Or I ordered it in June of 2008. Got it in September of 2008. And the first game I go to, it's funny enough, Anthony texted me in the middle of the day because I had the jersey with me and I was bringing it with me for the hell of it. I was like, all right, you know what? I got the jersey. It just came in like literally that day, so I brought it to work with me. And on the way, getting out of work, Anthony texted me at probably about like 2:30, 3 o'clock, somewhere around there. And I get the text from Anthony, and he said Anthony Sharapanov had passed. And Anthony was a jokester. He still likes to play little jokes like that, but he wouldn't do anything like that. And I had to really like stop and ask if he was messing with me there for a second, because I couldn't believe it. I was in such shock. And Chris, maybe you are right. Maybe he's never cleared to play again. Who knows? But if that doesn't happen and he doesn't have those incidents, you're looking at a player that I think would have been at least a point per game player or better. That's what I think. So, but I was a huge fan. He was my he's still probably my all-time favorite prospect. As much as I love Lafreniere as a prospect, Sharapanov was somebody I was just super, super excited for, because I couldn't believe that he fell as far as he did. This was why he fell, but when he fell that night, on that draft night in 2007, Roman Lyashenko was a suicide, but he wasn't a prospect at that point. That was rumored to be mob related. They found him in a hotel room in Turkey. I believe he hung himself. So I believe there was definitely some mob involvement. That's just me speculating, but I mean, knowing how the KHL and the Russian Super League were mob-oriented leagues, that's what I think. That's just my personal opinion. I have no evidence or anything like that to support this. But another honorable mention that I wanted to go over was Dan Blackburn staying healthy. And I know it's funny, and everybody's going to talk about, oh, well, Henrik Lundqvist, of course, goes without saying. But what if Dan Blackburn stays healthy? Did they have to make a choice between Blackburn and Lundqvist? Blackburn was the future of the organization in net. He was their guy. And they were really, really high on him. So, I'll get to this real quick. There's the Russian Super League and the KHL. There's mob involvement. It's not official or anything like that, and nobody's ever going to admit to it. But yeah, there's definitely mob involvement in that league. But Dan Blackburn, to me, and he was somebody that I was high on when he played in Kootenay, and he was a teammate of Nigel Dawes in Kootenay Ice in the WHL, and Blackburn, and the debate that year in 2001 in that draft was, who is the goalie of the future? Is it Dan Blackburn or Pascal Leclerc? Yeah, that's a name blast from the past, right? Pascal Leclerc, drafted 20 years ago by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He never panned out to be the goalie that he should have been with his draft positioning. So, but Dan Blackburn staying healthy would have made the Rangers have a choice to make between him and Henrik Lundqvist. Now, I don't know which way they would go, but you have to take a look at the two, and you have to say to yourself, hey, you know what? There's a conundrum now in net, and there's a decision. And even if they trade Blackburn, do they trade him for a piece that helps them grow as a team? Maybe a core player. Maybe it's a last piece that puts them over the top for the cup. Maybe they run Blackburn and Lundqvist like they did Richter and Van Beesbrook in the early 90s for a couple of years, where it's a 1A, 1B. So, but yeah, it was Dan Blackburn with that weightlifting accident, and he ended up having to use the second blocker. He couldn't use a glove anymore because he just didn't have the range of motion after that shoulder injury with the weightlifting accident. Another one for me, and this might not have changed much, but just as a Gretzky fan, I have to see this, and as a fan of the player too, but what if the Rangers acquire Pavel Bure at the 1999 trade deadline? And the reason I bring this one up is because Wayne Gretzky has gone on record as saying that he probably would have stayed for another year or so had they acquired him at the deadline. He would have held off on his retirement. And seeing Wayne Gretzky and Pavel Bure play together would have been absolutely nuts. Would have been absolutely nuts. Gretzky, like I said, has been quoted as this, and you would have gotten 2 years of Pavel Bure in a row where he scored almost 60 goals in Florida with almost no help. Ray Whitney and Victor Kozlov. I know that I'm missing a couple. I'm missing one honorable mention right now, and that would probably be the last one I could think of. But this one for me is kind of like a fan one, like kind of like a homer pick, if you will. I would have loved to have seen it. I really would have. And I think Bure would have helped the team out. You would have had a legitimate superstar at that point. Would they have been able to trade for Jaromir Jagr in 2001 or Eric Lindros in 2001? Maybe not at that point. It depends on what's given up in that trade. So a healthy Pavel Bure that's a few years younger, it's just kind of like the Jagr scenario. What if they would have gotten him a couple years early? Except it kind of goes off into keeping Wayne Gretzky as a Ranger. And that to me would have been huge. It would have been huge to have Wayne Gretzky as a Ranger, for a year or two with Bure. And I think that his numbers would have picked up. Adam Graves was a 38 goal scorer, I believe, in 1999. He was top, I think, 10 in the league that year in goals. And Gretzky had over 50 assists, but didn't even crack 10 goals in 70 games. That 99 team was brutal. They were awful. I mean, it was Leach, Schneider, Gretzky, and then Nedved came in, and Nedved was decent for them, but they didn't have defense. Mike Richter wasn't great. He was hurt too. Oh, right. All right. I thought. Can you guys see me all right? Because I don't know if I'm going in and out. It just the screen blacked out on me on like 2 different occasions just there right now. So I just want to make sure that I'm connected and I'm still. You all can still hear me. So. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, and the McSorley and Curry deal was a bad one. Yeah, and Brody. Yeah, I did. I heard the news. It was awful. We talked about that. We'll talk about that again in a little bit. I have one last honorable mention, and this was mentioned before, I believe, in the comment section. They draft Claude Giroux in 2006 over Bobby Sanguinetti. And if anybody remembers Bobby Sanguinetti, he showed up to one of John Tortorella's training camps. He was out of shape, and he threw up all over the place. And that was pretty much the end of Bobby Sanguinetti and any chance he might have had at being an NHL defenseman. So, I would have said, and Chris Iginla was rumored to the Rangers in like 2002, 2003. I actually had inside information on that. So, giving up Mattias Nordstrom Oleg was a bad one. That was a really, really bad one. But this one was bad. Iginla was, Chris. Trust me, he was. I have people on the inside that actually worked there at the time that could confirm this for me. He was. And not only that, but I used to talk to EJ Hradek via email years ago around that time. And EJ Hradek was one of the people who also said something about it. because I asked him about it and he heard about it as well. So EJ Radick used to do rumors. Also, Spectre's Hockey had mentioned it at one point. There was a deal that was involving Jamie Lundmark, Dan Blackburn. No, it wasn't a due diligence call. They weren't close to a deal, but there were talks of a deal possibly happening between the two teams. The Rangers had tried to get him. I can tell you that. I can't name names, but I can tell you right now that there were two people that I could trust that gave me information on this back then. So yeah, but I'm gonna get back to the whole Giroux thing. You just again, you draft Claude Giroux, you draft a center/winger that could have really helped this team out for 10 plus years over a guy who again didn't play a game for the Rangers. He didn't really do anything for them. He did nothing. So Bobby Sanguinetti ended up in Carolina's organization, and a lot of people never really heard from him again after that. But you draft Claude Giroux, who's one of the better players of a generation. Maybe you win the cup in 2012 or 2014. Especially 2012, they could have used a player like Giroux. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. But I'm going to give you my number one, and I am going to get controversial with this, and I think this is where the discussion's really going to pick up. I think there's going to be a lot of people, and if you haven't figured it out by now, I'd imagine you guys have got to know this one's coming. So, Tony Amonte and Mike Gartner are not traded for Stefan Noonan, or Stefan Matt O'Brien Noonan, because you could call him Stefan Noonan, because that's how Mike Keenan viewed them, apparently. He wanted them so badly. Gretzky in 89 is a good one, but they weren't really close to him. LA was really the team that was in on Gretzky. But Tony Amonte and Mike Gartner are not dealt at the 1994 trade deadline. And I'll leave the numbers here. I'll have them come up across the ticker. So the Rangers actually outscored the Devils in the season series 20-7 in the 5 games before the trade deadline. And like I said, I'll scroll those across real quick. Yep, 20-7. And I'll give you the game results as well. They played 5 games. And they were between December and February. They didn't play any games with, the trade deadline was in March, I believe, that year. The last game against the Devils was in February 24th of 1994. So the first 5 games, and I will give you the scores here. I have them lined up. Okay, so October 31st, 1993, it's a 4-1 win. My birthday, November 30th, 1993, was a 3-1 win. December 5th, 1993, was a 2-1 win. Day after Christmas in 1993 was an 8-3 win. And February 24th, 1994, was a 3-1 win. So in the 5 games with Gartner and Amonte, Gartner and Amonte helped outscore the Devils 20-7. Now, you took 2 legitimate top 6 wingers and you pulled them out and you moved the you basically took the talent level and you took them from about here to about here. Not that the Rangers were still not a very good team, but they went down to Jersey's level. The Rangers were the cream of the crop, and I watched the Road to Victory video in 90, the 94 story, and John Delapina talks about it, and he says that, oh well, the Devils are here looking at the Rangers, and they're looking at them and they're saying, wow, these guys are serious because they were the cream of the crop, and they just went and made these moves. Well, I mean, Glenn Anderson wasn't good as a Ranger. You can tell you that right now. His playoff run was horrendous. Stefan Matto, obviously, you talk about the goals, but you probably don't need 2 overtime goals from Stefan Matto to help get you past the Devils if you have a Monty and Gardner. And Keenan he had a hard-on for Brian Noonan. Brian Noonan was the guy he wanted. Matto was really just a throw-in at that point. Bob Pulford, then Chicago general manager, wanted a Monty. He would not back off of Monty. And Smith caved to Keenan's demands. Keenan orchestrated that trade. Keenan hated Gardner, and he hated Amonte, even though Amonte was a guy who actually played with some jam. He wasn't Adam Graves, but, I mean, he was a guy who would go and compete for pucks, and he was a speedster. So Mike Gartner ended up going to Toronto for Glenn Anderson. And Glenn Anderson, in 12 games and during the regular season with the Rangers, had 4 goals and 6 points. Now, I mean, he's a past prime Anderson. Then you say, okay, that's not terrible. But the postseason run was really what hurts. So in 1994, he had 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points in 23 games. And the Rangers didn't really benefit from Anderson being on that line. And if you look back to the Devils series, it was that series turned around in Game 6 when Kovalov was put with Messier and Graves. That, if anybody wants to go back and they want to thank 2 people for winning that series, go thank Alexei Kovalov and go thank Mike Richter, because Mike Richter kept them in Game 6. They could have been blown out of the water for Game 6. They could have been blown out, but Richter held his ground and was phenomenal in Game 6. Kovalov, when he was moved up, ended up just, him and Messier were unstoppable together in that game. And when they played together as a line, that line was incredible. But they didn't have a center on that second line. They needed a center. And Keenan wouldn't play Ed Olczyk for whatever reason. Hated Ed Olczyk. You could have played Ed Olczyk, and Ed Olczyk could have been your second line center. You could have had him with Steve Larmer and one of Mike Gartner or Tony Amonte there. And they didn't want to do it. And you had so much talent, and just Keenan hated it. And he was just all grit. And yeah, you know what? Those deals helped them win. But they also hurt them. Tony Amonte was a guy who had multiple 40-goal seasons in Chicago, several 30-goal seasons in Chicago. And Mike Gartner scored 30 goals up until 1997. Yeah, Mike Gartner was that good for that long. Glenn Anderson was out of the league by 1996. And in 95 was a shell of himself. In 96 was pretty much done at that point. Gartner had 30 goals in 94. It was one of his consecutive 30-goal seasons. That was snapped because of the strike, half lockout season in 95. But he had 35 goals in 96 and 32 goals for Phoenix in 97. And you look at a player like Gartner, and I understand why Keenan hated Gartner. And but you traded away future to get a downgrade because they were gritty. And thankfully, the other players that the Rangers had, could hold that team up the way that they did. Because if not, then that's one of the worst trades. Monty for Noonan and Matto is one of the worst trades of all time if they don't win that cup. You're talking at least one of the last 25 to 30 years. That's one of the worst trades. So I honestly, I think that they would have won without them, or they would have won without Noonan and Matto. Noonan was great in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs against the Islanders and the Capitals. He was on fire, but they didn't need Noonan to be on fire to beat those 2 teams. They ran over them. And Noonan, as great as he was, there were other guys like Messier had, I believe, goals in 3 straight games to start that series against the Islanders, and the back-to-back 6-0 shutouts. The Islanders didn't have a lead until Game 4. So, but I mean, yes, you're right. They traded away Wait for Tikkanen, but they don't win that cup without Tikkanen. They don't. They needed a number 2 center, and that would have been, you're right. He would have been the guy. I mean, he was a 100-point scorer in 96. But they don't win without Tikkanen. They don't. I mean, he was a guy who could still score points. He could still play up and down your top 3 lines, and he was still a very good defensive player in Checker because he was a great skater. I mean, they literally, Keenan went up to Tikkanen before Game 7 and told him that I need you to shadow Bure. And what did he do? He shadowed Bure, and Bure didn't do a thing that game. It was Trevor Linden that did the damage in that game. And then Nathan Lafayette hitting that post. So that, to me, is the biggest what-if in Rangers history. And this one's kind of funny. I'm just going to I like this. Trading 3 players for a half a season to Derek Morris. I do agree. It's kind of funny. Derek Morris really didn't do anything with them. And the trade didn't really hurt the Rangers in the long run, but it is kind of funny, the names that they were trying to trade for around those early 2010s to try to, Nick Antropov in 2009, then Derek Morris and like Wojtek Volsky, and just some of the names they traded for back then were just pretty funny. If you guys have any others that I didn't mention, feel free to list them. I also want you guys' thoughts on your guys and girls' thoughts on Rod Gilbert as well. Rod Gilbert, just sad day in Rangers history. It's awful. Like I said, I wanted to get this all done beforehand. Oh God, Sean, yeah, Olli Jokinen, yeah, that's where the line where you said you're going to give me PTSD for my intro to my editorial. Yeah, that's about Olli Jokinen. So Brian McCabe, yes, Chris, another one, nightmare. Just oof. Just oof size large. Yeah, John Scott, trading for John Scott as their only move in 2012 was kind of ridiculous. But again, they wanted Nash. Scott Howson wouldn't budge on the price for Rick Nash. So they waited until the offseason. Wade Redden. I don't know if I could say that's like a what if for me. Like not signing Wade Redden, like, yeah, you would have had cap space, but they buried him. They really kind of like an inconsequential move at the end of the day because of the fact that they were able to bury him. And that really changed around the next CBA because the Rangers got away with literally just burying a guy like that in the minors because he was bad. He was bad, but you know what? Earn your paycheck. Earn your paycheck. And Wade Redden didn't earn his paycheck. I liked Ryan Clough as a Ranger for that very short time, but he had too many concussions. But I'll never forget that first game where those guys came in and they absolutely slapped around Pittsburgh with those guys, with Brassard, Clough, and John Moore, and they absolutely slapped Pittsburgh around that night. That was the 2013 deadline. And that's a good one too, Oleg. I will put that up. What if Jágr never left for Russia after 2008? I'd have to say that, you know what? The state of the Rangers was that they were going towards signing Drury and Gomez, which is actually another comment that's up there that I will put up after this. And Jágr didn't like the fact that Straka and Nylander were not going to be a part of the organization's plans. And the Jágr and Friends era, that was another one. I mean, it was a small period of time, 06 to like 08. But how much longer does Jaromir Jágr play in the NHL if he doesn't leave for Russia for those 3 years? You got to remember. I mean, Oleg, I'm not sure where you live, Oleg, but I know in Russia a lot of the rinks are wider. Not all of them, but they are Olympic-sized rinks over there, and it's a less physical game. I think the travel is probably not as bad either. The schedule is shortened too. So all those elements combined they're not as hard on the body as the NHL's rigorous schedule and the physical smaller game. Okay, you're upstate New York. Okay, so you do live here. Sorry. I wasn't sure if you were here or if we had another fan from Russia. We have fans from Greece. We have fans from Australia. So sorry, I just don't know where everybody lives. It's my fault. But the rinks overseas are bigger for the most part. Not all of them, but some. And you put all of those elements together, how much longer would Jaromir Jágr have played had he stayed? I mean, could he have gone for another 5 to 10 years like he did? I don't know. I mean, I think the honestly, the wear and tear on his body, I think probably would have shortened his career a bit here. And I don't know if he's as productive as he is. But again, that is a very interesting what if. I absolutely agree with you there. That's a good one. What if Jágr never left for Russia? I just don't know how much better the Rangers would be just because of where they were at the time. Maybe they do win in 2012 with him. Maybe you're right. This is a really good one. Dave, what if they don't sign Drury and Gomez in the summer of 2007? I mean, you're not getting McDonough that way because, there's no Gomez to Montreal trade. Do they bring back Nylander? Do they bring back Straka at that point? I mean, who do they go after then at that point? I mean, the Jágr and Friends era would probably end anyway. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good one to think about. Honestly, they needed something. They were trying to go towards the cup. They were trying to build on Jágr, and Jágr ended up staying for that just one last year, and that was it. So, what if Drury doesn't score with 7.7 seconds left in Game 5 for the Sabres? I think they close them out. I don't know if they could beat Ottawa, though. Ottawa would have been tough. You would have had to face the best line in the NHL at the time with Heatley, Alfredson, Spezza. That would have been a real tough time for them. That would have. I think they ultimately would have lost, but you're looking at an Eastern Conference final. A big what if for me that season, though, if you remember that year in 2007, Brendan Shanahan and Mike Knuble accidentally collided with each other and gave each other concussions in a game. I believe it was in February against the Flyers. They both left on stretchers, I believe. But yeah, Brendan Shanahan being hurt didn't help them in the postseason. He wasn't really the same after that concussion. He was close to a point per game that season. But that concussion definitely changed things for Shanahan. So, Ottawa's goaltending was suspect. It's Emery, sure, Lundqvist was the better goaltender, and so as was Jaguar. I mean, even if they beat Anaheim, even if they beat Ottawa, I don't think they beat Anaheim. I just think that Anaheim's defense would have been too strong with the players they had with Pronger and Niedermeyer at the top there. I believe Nicholas Havlin was on that team too. I mean, their defense was pretty good, and Jaguar was still a good goaltender. He wasn't the 2003 John Sebastian Jaguar, but Chris Pronger had 59 points on only 66 games that year. That's nuts. That was still prime Chris Pronger. Like, that was arguably his. If it wasn't for his 2000 season where he won the Hart and the Norris, that was probably his very best season. But I mean, Solani had 48 goals and 94 points as a 36-year-old. Andy McDonald was close to a point per game. Scott Niedermeyer had almost 70 points in just under 80 games. Chris Kunitz, Ryan Getzlaff, Corey Perry, Dustin Penner was a big guy. Francois Beauchemin, forgot about him on that defense. Sean O'Donnell, who is a good veteran, played in LA and a couple of other places. Shane O'Brien. So no, Nick Havlin was not on that team. Sammy Paulson was on that team though. So they had a bunch of guys that were really good. And everybody's favorite head of Department of Player Safety was on that team, George Paros. Yeah, that was scary, Chris. I remember watching that game at my father's place, and that was scary. What if Bobby Granger doesn't teach Dominic Moore how to properly say forget about it? And yes, I said forget about it because that's what Dominic said. What if Bobby Granger doesn't curse up a storm on Peter Forsberg in that commercial? Is probably the better what if there, because maybe we still have Bobby Granger commercials, which I miss. I loved Bobby Granger commercials. Hey Peter, Smirosaku Brasa. And then Yager checks him, or Pruka checks him into the wall. It's like, oh, oh my God. I miss those commercials. I really do. No, Dominic, not forget about it. Forget about it. And then he comes back from the other commercial with Forsberg, and he's literally just quiet there the whole time. And he's not saying a word. He cuts John Davidson's ties. Oh, yeah. Well, Peter Pruka Oleg. I'll never forget when Turner Stevenson hit him knee on knee in a game in Philly during the second half of the 2006 season. It was a Turner Stevenson knee on knee hit, and he was never the same after that. I was really doing Rangers ones. But this is a very good one. What if Lindros and Sundin stay in Quebec? Your top three centers are Sundin, Sakic, and Lindros. Like, that's nuts. That's nuts. So, I mean, you would have had them. Owen Nolan. I mean, they had Sundin as a first overall pick in 89. Then you had Owen Nolan in 90, Lindros in 91. Those three first overall picks in a row. Three guys who were just incredible players. Owen Nolan, not as good as the other two. The other two were Hall of Famers, but and then you had Joe Sakic on top of that. So, I mean, and that's this is one that I probably could have saved. What if the Rangers won the lottery and got Sidney Crosby? And then you're looking at Sidney Crosby to come in as a rookie to play with Jaromir friggin' Jagr. Oh man, that would have been something. That would have been something. Maybe Crosby is near the end of his career. I mean, he just turned 34 a couple of weeks ago. But he's still probably going to be a point per game player for the next, I would say, 3 years, maybe even more. Because we are looking at multiple cups with Crosby. Pretty simple. The Rangers would have gotten a point per game generational center. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Chris. Gary Bettman happened. Gary Bettman and Mario Lemieux happened. That's what happened there. But you would have been able to take the cap space for that you would have saved with Crosby on his entry level deal, as opposed to having Michael Nylander or Martin Straka, and then you could take that and give that to Zdeno Chara the next offseason in the 2006 offseason. That's to me another big what if is what if Zdeno Chara chose the Rangers over the Bruins in the summer of 2006. That would have scaled the that would have tipped the scales for the Rangers in the conference for a long time. Takes on jerseys. I don't think the jerseys are getting political. I don't see how it gets political. I think it's a yeah. I don't think so. What if Don Murdoch hadn't discovered Peruvian marching powder? I don't know. I don't really want to get too far into that. Tom Murdoch was a good player, but yeah, he liked to party a little bit. I always thought Bettman kissed Mario's ass. Every time Mario cried, he was moving the team. Pens got first overall. Listen, I've said this before many times. I definitely think that 2005 draft was rigged. The Rangers were supposed to be right at the top of the league, as it was mentioned by Chris over here, and they ended up with 16. So yeah, I think Bettman had something to do with that. Oh god. Oh man. All I can do is laugh at that one. All I can do is laugh at that. Because I think a lot of people are probably thinking that across the league. I can tell you every fan of every other team other than the Capitals in our division is probably thinking that. So, yeah, I always wondered about Crosby. I wondered what if Jeremy Roenick never opened up his big mouth and said that the NHL should rig the draft to have Crosby go to the Rangers, like a week or so before the draft. I think it was maybe just under a week he said it. So I wonder what would have happened if that never happened. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any memories of Rod Gilbert. I don't know who is really old enough to have watched Rod Gilbert in here. New cross-checking penalty? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about there. New cross-checking penalty. I'm Not really sure of that. What if Stamkos was traded in 09? Yeah, that's one that there was a handshake agreement on. That could have changed the trajectory of a lot of things. That could have helped the Rangers win in 2012. You'd have a guy that's on an ELC or on a second-year deal making not a lot of money, or second deal making not a lot of money. And he would have been a guy that could have scored a bunch of goals for them. Really, really could have helped. And he would have helped at center too, because he played center for a long time. So, does he score 60 goals in 2012 without Marty St. Louis? Probably not. But if he's a guy that's scoring 40 to 50 for the Rangers for a decade or so, I mean, you're probably looking at a cup. I would say. Yeah, and that's a good part of it, Oleg. It's just you'd have two of the guys that were rookies in that same incredible 2006 rookie class that had, Crosby, Ovechkin, Lundqvist, Phaneuf, Pruka. I mean, there were some really, really good rookies. So, in that draft, Brody, my dad has a signed Joe Bear jersey, one of his greatest treasures. I have faint memories of him his last 2 seasons. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, you got to watch him play. I mean, I can't say the same. Thankfully, I got to watch Messier. I got to watch Gretzky. I got to watch, Graves and Leach and Richter. But getting to watch Roger Bear, that's got to be pretty cool, man. Rich, I met Roger Bear at MSG a few times. He was always great to his fans. Loved being a Ranger. Yeah, no doubt about that one, man. You know he loved being a Ranger. He was always around. He was a guy that could have just as easily went home, and he could have went home, and he didn't. So, but I have nothing but the utmost respect for Rod Gilbert. That's a guy who wanted to stay here. He wanted to play every game in a Ranger uniform. He was. You could call him Mr. Ranger if you want to, and you'd be absolutely right for doing so. You could say the same about Henrik Lundqvist. 2 guys that absolutely have the right to lay claim to that title. I've seen him around MSG. I've never actually got to meet him, but he was an ambassador, and Oleg said it best. He was an ambassador. He was an ambassador for this team and this organization. Did a lot of charity work well after his career was over. Even these last few years, just charity work, a ton of it, and always involved with the community. So, yeah, definitely with you there, Brody. He will be missed. He will be missed. Do I think an opening face-off fight between Wilson and Reeves is going to happen? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to watch. I wonder if Tom Wilson actually has the balls to square up with him. Got hit with the slap shot by Brad Park at summer hockey school in 1969. Broke my face mask. That was probably like the early part of face masks too. Yeah, Gravy. Yeah, Gravy. Gravy's another one. Gravy, like I said, those are my 3 when I think of it. It's Hank, Gravy, and Gilbert, or the 3 guys that I think of that you could say are Mr. Ranger when you talk about on ice play and their off ice contributions to the community and the organization. So, and yeah, he was. I mean, he was a better player than Graves. I would put Graves behind those 2 just because of the fact that Gilbert was the guy that on the ice he was a franchise type player. Graves is a very good player, but he was a support player, and he was a damn good one at that. But Gilbert was a guy you could build a franchise around. Lundqvist was a guy that you could build a franchise around, and they were both just as involved in the community as Graves is. And I again, I have family that worked in the Garden that have nothing but great things to say about Adam Graves. So another man that I have the utmost respect for. Graves and yeah, and Graves was all heart, Rich, all heart and guts. And that's why I think a lot of fans, when he got traded, San Jose, they were not happy, and I can't say I blame them, because he was traded after a season where he won the Masterton. He had his father and his son die in the same week, and you traded him after that. And that's why when people talk about what happened with Hank and how they poorly handled Hank, yeah, they handled Hank poorly, but that's not even the dirtiest this organization has done a player. It's not. No, I know, Dave. I'm just talking about, like, just where I scale them. I would put Graves right behind the other two. Chris, I actually was watching a video. I think the Rangers are going to debut a fourth jersey. I think it's called Post to Post. I think it's the name of the channel on YouTube. And he was and he apparently he's got some inside info. He's gotten some scoops right. He's got some sources about jerseys, and he's gotten a few things right. Apparently, I was looking at the comments section on it, and some of the people were talking about how he got these guys right. So, but yeah, he was saying that the Rangers will debut one. I don't remember when, but I would have to try to find the video again, and maybe in the next live stream I could, if I remember, I'll put it in there. And not a fan of reverse retros. Yeah, I know. Listen, they should have just brought back the Liberty as it was. I agree with that. I think this looks more like a practice jersey. I mean, it looks good with the pants, but I definitely think they should have just brought back the actual Liberty jersey. I have this feeling with our current team, we're entering a great. Yeah, I'm with you, Brody. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referencing here. I'm sorry, I've just kind of like caught up, trying to catch up to these. New PR person for the Rangers. I'm not sure. I know John Rosasco is not in that position any longer, and that's why I believe Rick Carpinello is his kind of his source material or so, like his articles where he talks about source type of stuff, rumors, have been off, because I'm pretty sure that Rosasco was his source. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I watched. Hold on, let me. You know what? I'll turn on my TV here, and I'll see if I can find this, because it's somewhere in my YouTube history, and I watched it, I think, either yesterday or the day before. Hold on. I just got to pull this up. Molly Walker is just she's just the writer for the Post. She's not their PR. Oleg, yeah, I'm with you there, man. I think that the Buchnevich trade wasn't good. Don't get me wrong. I've said that time and time again. Okay, the name of the channel, by the way, is called Post, the number 2 Post Productions. So, and the video was done. Hold on, let's see here. The video was from August 14th. So he actually does like a whole bunch of videos on it. So I wouldn't agree with this. I don't think that has anything to do with it. It has more to do with Neil Smith just making bad decisions and trying to keep 1994 alive. Yeah, Reeves will keep everybody safe. So, I mean, maybe, I mean, he can't prevent everything from happening, but you do know that the other teams are going to be thinking about, taking liberties on the Rangers now. So, remember when Keenan not paying him? Yes, yeah. They decided not to pay him, and then he ended up going to St. Louis, and yeah, that was a weird situation. The Rangers wanted Scotty Bowman, but they couldn't get Scotty Bowman, and they ended up going to Detroit. But that was before that, by the way. Sorry. August just Stu Grimson 5 years. Red Wings matched it. Not surprised. Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Like he basically he was there and he was the top 6 guy, and now you got Kakko, Lafreniere, and Kravtsov, and that's the thing. Those kids will make strides, and they can replace Buchnevich's offense, all 3 of them. And then your bottom 6 gets better, especially if you put Kreider there. And then the young kids are going to be 1 year, more experienced. Keandre Miller, it's. I think a lot of teams are overlooking them. I think they're going to be a better defensive team. I think, and Buchnevich is a good penalty killer, but so is Barclay Goodrow. Barclay Goodrow is going to come in and help on the penalty kill. So, if everybody stays healthy and they progress, this team can be better than this past year's team. And honestly, I like the I like adding the toughness to the team. I think it balances it out. I know a lot of other people. I know Statboy Steven was in here before. He was commenting, but I know he doesn't necessarily like that as much as I do. But I think that I think that they're a little more balanced this way. And I do agree with Steven, though. You can't sacrifice skill for toughness. You can add toughness, but you can't sacrifice skill to do it. And that's part of the problem that a lot of Ranger fans have. But I do think this team is far more balanced than they were before, especially if you put Chris Kreider on that third line. And to me, I don't know how you can put Chris Kreider on that first line again. I really don't, especially after the season he had this past year. I mean, yeah, he had 20 goals, but 9 of his goals came in a 6-game span. 9. That's about half of his goals came in a 6-game span, and the rest of the season was just kind of meh for him. So you got to put Chris Kreider there. You have to have him in your bottom 6 at this point. You got to have Alexis Lafreniere. It's and yeah, Steven's right. Again, like I said, you can't sacrifice talent for toughness, but you do have to have toughness to win. Look at Tampa Bay. And Chris, this is a good one. Do you think? No, I don't think so, because Kakko hasn't performed up to what his draft status was yet, so that's going to help them. Adam Fox, obviously, that's going to be a big deal. You're going to have to sign him and get him tied down, real quick. So, but yeah, Adam Fox will be a good player. You're looking at, you're going to have to look at a deal for Kravtsov, but Kravtsov really hasn't done anything yet. And yeah, Andy, you're right. It would have been nice to keep him, but Chris Kreider's extension basically doomed him. The minute Kreider was signed to that extension, that was it. And Rich, I agree. Kreider's built for that third line. He's not somebody that it's a play driver. I think if you put Lafreniere with Zibanejad and Kakko, I think that line is better they're much better. I think you have 2 guys that can make plays. You have 2 guys that can absolutely snipe on that line in Lafreniere and Zibanejad. Then Kakko's got a decent shot too, but he needs some work. But yeah, if Kakko scored 65 points, I think Rangers Town would flip out. Yeah, that trade, it was bad because they didn't want to do anything with Olczyk. They did nothing with him. He could have done more if they played him more. And Keenan hated him for whatever reason. I don't know why. Yeah, thank you, Brody. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Lav has played center, not in a while. Don't know if it'll happen at the NHL level. I don't know if I want to mess with that. Yeah, it's easy to. It is, but here's the other thing. Thank you, Rich. You look at Chris Kreider. He was 29 years old at the time that he ate an extension. Chris Kreider's game is not predicated on skill. It's predicated on physical tools. It's predicated on hard work. It's predicated on skating. He has a good shot, but he's not an elite sniper or anything like that. So a guy like Kreider, even with his physical tools, even with his conditioning, his game is more prone to falling off quicker than someone like Crosby, whose game's predicated on skill. Skills don't leave you. Smarts don't leave you. Physical tools deteriorate quicker. And that's why Chris Kreider's extension just even didn't make sense then. Because I get you want to try to win with Panarin, but if you're in a rebuild and you have a guy that looks like he could deteriorate sooner than later, and he's not a skilled player like that, but he's a guy that gives you a bit because of his physical tools, why are you not cutting ties and getting a return for him? You could get a young player. You could have gotten something for him. But they didn't. So there you go. It just, even you want to say laugh, fine. They could have taken that draft pick and they could have signed, even if they didn't win the lottery. You can get Anton Lundell there at 11 because that's where they would have picked had they not won the lottery. It was either 1 or 11, and you could have gotten Anton Lundell there. So I don't agree with this. 2014 was the run you're referencing, but superstar, no. Top line player, sure, but superstar, no. He has games where he's on and he's dominant and he's all over the place and he's making a difference even if he's not scoring. And then he has games where he's effortless and he's a ghost and he's invisible. I disagree with this. The last 2 seasons, I would say that would be incorrect. Especially this season. He drove that line while Mika Zibanejad was just dog shit because of COVID. So Buchnevich you'll fill that loss on that line unless Lafreniere and Kakko, which I think can be a line and can be a really good line together with Zibanejad, unless the two of them step up and really make up for it, because Buchnevich is really the play driver on that line. It's not. It wasn't Kreider. And Zibanejad, yes, he can, but Buchnevich was definitely a player that I think you're going to see the difference in this line. Trust me, you're going to see it. I'm not going to sit here and cry over it or harp on it or anything like that. But it wasn't a good trade. But Kreider is really the guy that it just pisses me off because there's potential for so much more, and he just doesn't give you it. Are teeth or mouth guards required in the NHL? I would imagine that players probably all wear them. I don't know which ones don't. I wouldn't have a clue, but I don't think they're required. I just think just a lot of players wear them because it helps in concussion reduction too. The Goodrow contract, similar, long-term for his game, is mostly predicated on physicality. Barclay Goodrow is being paid to be a bottom 6 winger. He's not being paid for anything more than that. He's being paid for being a penalty killer, an experienced guy that's won a cup, and being a bottom 6 forward. That's really it. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it. I think it's think it's a good addition. The contract is a little higher in term and AAV than I'd like, but that's not a killer. It's really not a problem. The problem is Chris Kreider making $6.5 million to be a guy that's inconsistent and disappears for games. And another problem is Jacob Trouba making $8 million to be a second pairing defenseman. You cannot be paying a second pairing defenseman $8 million. And I know that, you can turn around and say, oh, well, Adam Fox is special. Yes, he is. But Jacob Trouba lost that spot because Adam Fox outplayed him and Jacob Trouba did not play up to that. So, and this kind of says it all for me. Hopefully Gallant will start to hold Kreider accountable, unlike Quinn and Vigneault, and really start to bench him when he starts, doing these things, because Chris Kreider should have been benched this season well before he was ever dropped and demoted. And Alexis Lafreniere should have been given a chance earlier on because of Chris Kreider's bad play. So, Oleg, they cannot, or they can buy out Trouba, but do you want to know what that buyout would look like? Because it's not a good one. I can tell you that. It's not a buyout that you would want to really kind of think about. It's bad. It's pretty bad. So you're talking about buying him out after this upcoming season. So let's just say July 15th, 2022. Okay. So if they buy him out after the 2021-22 season, his cap hit for the dead cap for the following year in 2022-23, because it would be 8 years in total that he would be on the books, would be $4.166 million in 23. Then in 24, it would be 2.166. Then back to 4.166 in 25 and in 26. And then 2027 through 2030, it would be 2.166 million. It's not really a good one. I wouldn't. Andy, if I can't speak for everyone, if they wouldn't. If you lose players, you will have to complain about those contracts. No, Trouba's contract, it does suck. You're right. He's not a liability on the ice, but it's not. And our man, I have seen Hockey Guys video. I am a subscriber to Hockey Guys channel. I love Shannon's work. Shannon is a great channel. I will constantly plug him on here because I think his work is phenomenal. He works his ass off to do what he does to get to where he did. And I try to differ from Shannon just because I like the formula that we have as the three of us together. I don't want to be the straight up informative type. And Shannon's funny. He makes some cracks and some jokes, and he's got humor. And I like Shannon's work a lot. But Shannon, I want to be different from Shannon, and but his work is great. He really is. He puts in a lot of time. I think he's arguably the best hockey YouTuber out there right now. And I have no problem saying that because he just does so much work and just looks up so much and puts so much time and effort into every video he does. So, I saw that video, and yes, you're right. He did give Trouba the award, and he mentioned Kreider's as well. So, to imagine that. Trouba pulls a McDonough. Yeah, it's bad. It's a bad buyout. Trouba you're right about that, Chris. That's actually a great point. His edge work definitely could use some work. He could definitely be better on his edges. It's part of why he seems to get beat to the outside sometimes like he does. They trade Mack and acquire Trouba the next year. They let Fast walk and then signed Gaudreau for more to basically do this. Yeah. Well, they had to let Fast go, Chris, because of the fact that they would have had trouble getting under the cap this past season. Yeah. Again, this was just said before, Oleg. You're right. He's not a bad player. Not worth $8 million though. It's not. Oh, hey, welcome in, Mark. Yes, Sergei Bobrovsky is probably the worst contract in hockey right now. Ooh, you know what? No, I got one for you. Jeff Skinner. I definitely want to do a best and worst contracts videos as well. So, but yeah, welcome on Mark. If he wasn't working, we could probably get him on for a few. But yeah, so Jeff Skinner is probably the hands down worst, I would say, though. $9 million to do what? I don't know if Erik Karlsson's is that. I mean, DiPietro's not even. He's not even on the cap. Stop. Start bringing up Bobby Bonilla if that's the case. They have nothing to do with each other. Stop. Erik Karlsson, yeah, his is bad. I just don't know if, like, because Erik Karlsson, oh, yeah, 22 points. Oof. That's rough. And only 52 games. Oh, man, that's terrible. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Doughty had a really good year this year. He had a really, really good year. Thank you, Rich. Definitely appreciate that. And guys, yeah, please, if you can, like, share, and subscribe. Recommend us. And definitely check out the other shows that we mentioned in here. I've mentioned Statboy Steven and Tyler, Wardy NHL. I know that the couple of times that I've gone in there, I've seen you guys in the comments section, so that's awesome. Keep supporting them too. And Shannon as well, the hockey guy. Definitely. Odd Man Rush is another.
Hey, John, just joining in with you for a second.
What's that?
Just joining in with you for a second.
Good.
That I'm literally in the back of my kitchen right now, and
I was about to say I see writing on the back of whatever that is behind you.
Yes, keep the door closed at all times. So because it's not like I can walk outside with the hurricane coming. But we'll probably talk more about the career of Henrik Lundqvist and the passing of Rod Gilbert today. But just to get your thoughts real quick on Rod Gilbert and the legacy he left behind.
Like I said before, there are three players that I think of as the title that I could think of for the title of Mr. Ranger. Adam Graves, Henrik Lundqvist, and Rod Gilbert. And Rod Gilbert was one of the two guys, him and Lundqvist, that were there for his entire career. And as good of players as they were on the ice, they were better people off the ice. So,
yeah.
I mean,
I think it's down to Lundqvist and Gilbert. I don't think there's, and it's sad that it's almost appropriate. Henrik's retirement comes at the same time as Gilbert's
passing. Yeah,
Gilbert's passing, but
it's crazy.
It's is what it is, and it'll all be well, we'll cover it on Wednesday when we get together again. So that I can't wait to cut this up for you for the what ifs. So I'll check that out. But I'm going to leave you, so I'll talk to you later, John.
Take care, Mark. And Mark is another night at the bar, doing a little work there. But he wanted to stop in and say hi. So, but I believe we'll be streaming again either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not sure yet. Hopefully Mark will put something up so you guys know when, and well, he will, but he'll put something up, so that you guys know when we're streaming, and we'll do more of that, and we'll talk more about Hank's retirement. We'll talk more about Rod Gilbert's passing. We'll talk more about other things. Got some topics to go over in Bar Talk, some editorials as well. I know Mark has an honest press conference picked already. I think we've got to do that. Anthony, yes, Anthony is probably cleaning up a horse head. And that's after he tends to his 2 daughters and his wife. So Anthony is the one that's the married family man out of all of us. Me and Mark are, single and out there. So, but yeah, Anthony is. I think Mark cut that up, Dave. Actually, I think he cut that up and it's up there. So, you want to take a look at that. But we're going to be talking about it more as a group. It was kind of just me and Mark the other day, so we'll do that. I think what we'll do is we'll do the top Henrik Lundqvist moments too, whether it's saves, moments, or stuff like that. So, but yeah. So have a good night, Rich. Good to see you as always. Oh, and this is an interesting one. All right, so Anthony, I met through a mutual friend of ours named Pete, who is also a big Ranger fan. I met Pete through a MySpace Ranger group that I created. It was called Potvin Sucks. I created it back sometime around 2005, I would say. And I ended up getting a whole bunch of members. And Pete and I met up opening night, 2005. So I hung out with him. And he told me that he had this guy, Anthony, that he plays on a hockey team with. And Alex Goldberg, who also comments in our comments. He's one of our regular viewers. And they wanted me to play hockey on their team with them. And so I've been friends with Anthony and Alex and Pete for 16 years now. Mark, I met through a mutual friend of mine and this gentleman right here, Dave, our mutual friend Lisa. And that's how I met Mark. I actually met Mark at his job. We'd all go to hang out, me, Lisa, and our other friends, and Mark was there. And Mark and I just every time I would go there, it was just all hockey. We would talk hockey and sports all the time. And all of a sudden, Mark earlier on this year, he wanted to do the Tony D'Angelo stuff, and he's like, "You want to come on with me?" Well, sure. And this is how this channel started. I should say the live streaming part of the channel. Mark had the channel before I came along. And then Anthony kind of jumped into the picture because Anthony and I, 3 years ago, had Off the Post. Off the Post was on, I think it's on it was Worldwide Sports Network now. It was called Sports on the Go 1 back then, but we were based out of Ronkonkoma. It was an internet radio station. And Anthony and I had our own show. We actually went to Dallas to cover the NHL draft in 2018. So, we were there when the Rangers drafted Kravtsov, Miller, and Lundqvist, and the Islanders took Wallstrom and Dobson. So, Anthony jumped in and surprised me one day and ended up on one of our shows. And Mark said afterwards, I want to keep him. And I want to expand. And we want to cover more teams. So that's how Big Apple Hockey has come to be. Yeah, we're doing more coverage for the Islanders, the Devils. We want to do more coverage from. I'm somebody who watches. I get NHL TV and Center Ice. I get it every year. So I will be watching, and I will be covering more of the Devils and outside of New York games as well. I try to watch as much hockey as humanly possible during the season, because when we're in the off season like this, we're all craving it. So I watch as much as I can, and it's probably why I suck at relationships. I'll be the first to admit that I probably watch too much hockey for a girl's liking. So, have I read Thin Ice: A Season in Hell? No, I haven't, but I will check that out. I'm not big on reading. I don't read a lot, but I will read that. That is for sure. I will show you something that I have, however. Hold on one second. New York Rangers, 75 years. Don't know where you would find this. Probably on eBay or Amazon, maybe, or something like that. Don't know how much it is right now. It was given to me as a gift. It's awesome. Definitely suggest it. It's got like all the records and stats and everything like that. Basically, a summary of the Rangers. I believe this was made in 2001. If I'm correct. It was $40 upon original sale. Hold on, let me see what gives you a player index. All the players. Well, Peter Nedved is a current Ranger, is listed as a current Ranger in this book. So I think this is 2001. Yeah. Oh, this might be 2000 actually, because they don't even have Ron Lowe listed as a coach. No, they don't have Ron Lowe listed as a coach. So this looks like Glenn Sather isn't even listed as a general manager, so this is 2000. This is the 2000-2001, before the start of the 2000-2001 season. The game by Ken Dryden. Okay, that's another good one. Okay, Michael Sullivan. Years ago, I saw Esposito being interviewed, and he said the Middleton trade had to be made for his own good. There were rumors that he was having personal issues, but Espo did not say that. I think Esposito was definitely involved in getting his friend Ken Hodge there. That's definitely, yeah. But, and Dave, I don't know if you thought this was for Bret Hart, but this is Macho Man, buddy. I don't know why you said Bret Hart, but and well, no, that's not the one I wanted to go to. Yeah, I do think Miller can meet his upside. I don't know if he's going to meet the peak. I've always said that at his peak, he could be somewhere around like Darnell Nurse, Seth Jones, somewhere around there. He's just got that similar size and build to those guys, and he's a really good skater. He's been playing well in the Beauty League in Minnesota, which is pretty cool. It's a lot of NHLers to just play for fun in the offseason there. Been scoring a lot of goals, and yeah, okay, the best there is, yeah. You need a little pump your tires some more there, bud. But I never got to read Ball Four Baseball. I watched Ken Burns' documentary on it. I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't think you could see the shirt, but yeah. So, but now that I know that you're pumping up your own tires, do your thing, I guess. Do your own little promo. But yeah. So I wanted to do this video. I know I talked about it for a while. I know that it was out of the blue. I will try to do these videos at different times, so this way we get different player during different crowds in, and get more, so we can get more discussion on it. I know this is kind of last minute, but I wanted to get it done. I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. So to everybody who isn't on, I hope you guys check it out and like it, share it, subscribe it, and comment and keep the discussion going, because there's a bunch of what ifs that I probably didn't mention. So okay, this is an interesting part, because I've actually mentioned this in regards to the whole Eichel situation. And the thing is that I totally agree here, Chris. There's two things that really scare me about Zibanejad. It's not just the concussions, but it's the shooting percentage with Mika. Like I don't see him continuing at like a 15% rate or better. I think he could shoot 12, 13%, but is that 30 goals a season? Because I don't think he's a guy that like he was in 2020 where he was on pace for 57 goals. You know, that was nuts. He was on pace to lead the entire league in goals. And he led the league in goals per 60. And he led the league in goals per game. So I don't think that's I think that's a real ridiculous hot streak. But if even at 9.5 million, I would rather have a 24, 25-year-old Eichel who I know can elevate the players around him because of his elite playmaking and skill, as opposed to a 29-year-old Mika Zibanejad who you have to worry about his shooting percentage going down drastically. And he's older by 4 or 5 years. I wouldn't give Mika Zibanejad anywhere near the money that Jack Eichel is making. And Jack Eichel at 10 million, I don't think how many people realize that that's actually a steal for what he is. Jack Eichel was on pace for 94 points in the 2020 season with Buffalo. Yeah, with that rolling dumpster fire of a team rolling down a dumpster fire that's rolling down a San Francisco street, those big hilly streets at 60 miles an hour, on fire, smacking into things. Yeah, that was Eichel. So Eichel was putting up elite numbers with that team. Yeah, we're really excited about the D. What if D Corp plays the potential? Do you think? I think they're a top 10. If that defensive unit pans out the way that it should in the future, that's one of the best units in the league going forward. Maybe not this upcoming season, but you're going to tell me that a unit that could have Adam Fox, Ryan Lindgren, Jacob Trouba, Nils Lundqvist, Braden Schneider, and Keandre Miller, that looks like an elite unit, if you ask me. So, I mean, some moves are going to be made. I mean, Schneider and Lundqvist are both right side defenders. Do they both stay with the team? I don't know. There's one of them moved for Jack Eichel. I mean, personally, if Braden Schneider was what it would have taken to get Jack Eichel, I would have moved. I would have done it. But I understand Chris Drury. Chris Drury is literally just waiting for Kevin Adams to kind of have to lower his price. Because once that no movement clause kicks in, he controls where it goes. And the Sabre fans will turn around and tell you, oh, well, he doesn't have to deal Jack Eichel. Oh, you're right, but now you just have a gigantic black eye in the organization. You know, good luck trying to get any other players, because that's a terrible look. And you know what? I know Elrock might have said that he doesn't see Donald Fear stepping in, but if this gets worse, that's a possibility. And it looks like it's going to get worse. I do think it could happen. So, I mean, we'll see. I would every analyst that's on, even Ken Danico on NHL Network the other day was saying, I don't see any way that Eichel's not dealt by like the end of training camp or something. And Chris Johnston said the next pressure point was training camp. Said that on Steve Dangle's podcast a couple of weeks back. I mean, that's really it. Like, I mean, Erik Karlsson was dealt in the middle of training camp a few years back. He was dealt at San Jose. I just don't see how you can bring him back. Too much of a distraction. You got a very young team. Why do you want that distraction there? I don't know. I'll take a few more questions. I'll probably go for like another 10 minutes and then we'll probably be done. But where does Rangers winning lottery rank in your top moments as a Rangers fan? It's a good question. one of my favorite moments. I don't know if it's top 3. I was there for I was there for the Game 6 and Game 4 and Game 6 against Montreal in 2014, and Game 6 was incredible. Marty's OT winner in Game 4 was incredible. I was there for that. Winning the Cup in '94 was incredible. Messier passing Howe was incredible, even though those teams were just bad back then at that time. Gretzky's playoff run in '97, being the Gretzky fan that I am, that was a big thrill for me. I don't know. That's tough, man. It's tough. It's probably top 10. I don't know if it's top 3, but it's in my top 10 definitely. That was an awesome moment. I was in a group chat with some friends, and we all just went ballistic. I was here. I was home. I couldn't even believe it happened. Couldn't even believe it. So I think Laf is ready to break out though this year. NHL Network basically had him as their number 1 candidate to break out, and I think he's going to. I think what he showed us at the end of the year is that there's confidence there now. I believe the kids actually were skating with Chris Kreider this offseason, and we know one thing about Chris Kreider is we know he's a gym rat. We know he puts a lot of work into his skating, physical conditioning. That's big. That's really big. So, yeah. And you're welcome, Mar, man. You're welcome. I love doing this. It's awesome. I gotta think of more content, and I will get you guys more content. Anthony and Mark are on that too, obviously, but we're always looking for more content. And you know what? When the season picks up, we'll have more guests too. We'll also be able to do more recaps of games, so the streams will become more closer to daily than they are weekly. So, I really don't play fantasy hockey. I don't have the attention span for it. I don't really even play fantasy football anymore. But if you guys wanted to start something, I mean, that's cool. I mean, ask the guys and girls in the chat. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you could probably find some people that will want to play. So, thank you, Oleg. I appreciate that, man, and we appreciate that, I should say. So we love doing this. Yes, I understand that MSG does it. It's like Zone 4 or something like that. MSG has had their broadcasts for a while. They used to be on Empire Network, and I think MSG bought them out sometime in the mid-2000s, I believe. I can't remember exactly when, but MSG has had Buffalo games for a long time. So, yeah. Yeah, and just be aware, guys, we also have a group on Facebook. It's called Big Apple Hockey. The banner that you see, hold on, try to see if I could pull up the brand. Yeah, where is it? Well, our normal brand. So, yeah, so that's how our banner looks on Facebook. So, yeah, like it's a zoning thing. It's all zones. It's just a matter of where your zone is. Your zone is since you're in Albany is Sabres. So you would have to order NHL TV or Center Ice. So Yeah, and definitely, yeah. Continue to keep watching. We'll give you more content. Like I said, we love doing this, man. I could talk hockey with you for hours and hours and hours on end. I mean, I'm pretty sure you were there for the marathon streams that I did, where I was on for like 5 hours. Like that's nothing. I could go longer. So, and thank you, Brody. Appreciate it, man. We like being interactive because it's entertaining. It's entertaining for us, and it's entertaining for you guys as well. And you guys get involved in it, and you guys put your input. Hold on. They black you out up there? That's ridiculous. That I don't get it. Zoning, the zones, it doesn't. But the programming, that I don't get. I really don't get that. That's ridiculous. I know that the zones are different, so they shouldn't be blacking you out. That's something you should probably have to discuss with them, because that's unreal. But I mean, getting back to this, think of it this way: we're all here to do one thing: talk hockey. And I don't want to be the guy that sits there and just sounds like a teacher in a classroom. Because that's not. I don't think that's entertaining for anybody. I know this video tonight was a little more like that than most of our videos, but we like being interactive because it's fun. It's better. It's literally like we're almost all together kind of talking about this. And it's great that way because you don't run out of things to talk about. You get everybody involved. Everybody gets to share their voice. And it's awful. The whole blackout thing is awful. I can't stand that. I can't stand how they do that to you. You guys had to get a VPN. That sucks. But this is just great. Hey, Matt. But we like doing what we're doing. We like our way, and this isn't like some sort of pre-concocted formula. What we do, it's natural. It just this is how it is. Like we like. I mean, sure, we do Q&A more towards the end of our things, but that's just because we have stuff we have to go over. And even while we're doing that, we still try to keep you guys interactive and keep you guys involved with it, because that's it. I just feel like, listen, if we wanted to all talk hockey at a bar, sort of how we would do it. Oh, look who it is, Ziga. Hey, what's going on? But yeah, we try to keep to what we do and the way that we do it, because of the fact that we have fun doing it. And I like what we have going on, and you all have told us this, and that's why we want to do what we do. That's why we want to do things the way that we've been doing them. Shannon, the hockey guy, he has his format, and his format works for him, and it's good. And I like Shannon's stuff. I recommend Shannon to everybody in here. Shannon knows what he's talking about. Shannon's smart, and he puts a shit ton of work and effort into his stuff. So check him out. I mean, Steven and Tyler on Wardy, they're really good. Odd Man Rush does these things called Draft Day Disaster, where it takes like the worst picks of the first 2 rounds in each draft and takes the worst player in terms of like NHL production and career and puts him at first overall, and the least worst is like the 32nd or the 30th or the 60th overall pick, sorry, at the end of the second round. It's pretty funny. Like Odd Man Rush does some really good stuff, and he does the career of and stuff like that. Your friend got into a fight with Steven? What happened with that? I'm definitely interested in the details here. But I you know what? I love Odd Man Rush's stuff. I follow him. What do I think Rod Gilbert's rookie card would be worth? I don't know. It would be good, though. Kakko memes. Ooh. Okay, hold on. Because I think I saw this earlier. Hold on. Now I'm curious. No, I was yeah, I don't I don't care about or I don't care for the people who call Kaapo Kakko a bust. It's ridiculous. I thought I saw Kakko something about it. Was it yesterday? Something? Oh, yes, that's right. The Tim Stutzler thread. Yes, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. This one. Okay. Yeah, hold on. And Rick, thank you. I appreciate that. But I mean, definitely subscribe to the others too, man. There are a lot of really good streams out there. A lot of good. Oh, Hockey Hound deleted it. Or me. Yeah, I don't know. All right, but I know which one you're talking about now because I remember seeing that. But yeah, so and here's the thing, and definitely rest in peace, Rod Gilbert. Yeah, Justin, definitely good to have you too, Justin. But yes, Ziggy, you're right about this, man. It's absolutely true. It's Stutzla was good in Ottawa, but Stutzla played top 6 minutes, and he also played first power play unit. Lafreniere didn't get those, and he barely got them at the end of the year, and he still put up good numbers. Like the pace that he was scoring at when he started getting those numbers, when he started getting that, when he started getting the time on ice for the top six. Tell you right now, if he would have kept up anywhere close to that pace, he would have been challenging Kaprizov for Rookie of the Year. Probably not one would have won it, but he would have at least given him a run for something. So, and again, this says it all. Give them time. Give them time. That's it. They're going to come around. They're going to come around. Oh man, don't you just know it? Bringing up a yeah, you're bringing up a tough one here because Michael Sauer in 2012 would have absolutely helped. They played Stu Bickle like 1.5 minutes per game. You would have had that 6 defenseman would have made the difference against Jersey. They needed a goal scorer, which Nash could have helped, but they also needed that one extra defenseman, and the Dion Phaneuf hit ruined that. And yeah, you're right about this, Brody. People think that the number 1 overall draft pick should automatically come in and be a point per game player as a rookie. That's not how it is. Not every player is McDavid or Crosby or Malkin or Ovechkin as a rookie. A lot of those guys that do that are generational type players. Like Kane was a 70-point player as a rookie in Chicago. That team wasn't really even a good team. It took Kane until his 3rd season to become a point per game player. He had 30 goals and 88 points in his 3rd season when they won the first cup. So, yeah, I mean, we try not to be too negative here. try not to be too negative, but you know what? You got to call things how you see them. And that's what I always try to say. I try to call things how we see them. And I'm not going to be the guy that pumps the team's tires when they're clearly doing something wrong, but I'm not going to be the guy that's going to say the sky is falling when it's not. You know? I just call it how I see it. That's it. That's all I can do. So, but yeah, Power is going to go back to Detroit. Back to Michigan rather. So yeah, good for Power. I agree with you. And this year's not a great draft year. Like, if you talk about first overall picks in drafts, Power is one of the weaker ones of the last 20 or so years. So there's nothing wrong with this at all. Yeah, you know what, Brody, we try to stay within ourselves, but we also try to be realistic. And we try to make it fun. We try to make it interactive. We try to keep things the way we keep them normally, and not branch off too far off. I mean, yeah, we're gonna diversify things a little bit more, obviously, with the expansion, covering more teams and adding more content and everything. But we like to stick to the formula of what we have, because I feel like it's working, and this channel has grown so much so quickly. I remember when we first started doing live streams, there was like nobody like watching us, nobody. Now all you guys are coming in and watching us. You guys are here at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. You know, our afternoon streams during the week, we've gotten close to 100 viewers in a stream on at one time. We've gotten over like 2,000 views on some of our videos. I mean, I know that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but you know what? Yeah, and Ziga, you're right. 50 easy on a Wednesday or a Tuesday stream that we do. You know, as long as we give you guys enough notice and you guys see it, and you guys are on, you guys are awesome. You guys come in and you hang out with us and you talk with us. And, you know, if we're helping get you through your day, then good. Because you know, I like doing that, man. We keep the yeah. I mean, I said I was going to end at 10. I might go visit Mark for a little bit. I know one of my friends that's actually commenting on here was asking me what I was doing tonight, and I told him I was doing this. He ended up coming in. So I might go visit Mark. Might go have a beer. Hurricane weather can suck it for all I care. But yeah, I mean, Rick, it's going to be more fans, Rick. There's going to be more fans of other teams. Again, we don't want to have to moderate this. We really don't want to have to moderate this. So, and likewise, buddy, likewise. I mean, you guys are our people. You guys are the OGs here. So, and I just hope that everybody is everybody's around when, you know, we're big too, because, you know, this is what we want to do. We want to grow this, and we want to have this be a brand, and we don't want to be like Spittin' Chicklets. We don't want to be like anybody else. We want to be ourselves. We want to be the first Big Apple Hockey. We don't want to be a ripoff of something else. So, but I am going to get going, and I'm going to call it a night. As soon as Azul, talk to Mark about that. If you can, like, DM Mark in some sort of way. His name was the Big Apple Hockey. That was here. I'll pull him up. Try to see if I can get his. That's his handle on here. So if you want to like DM him in some sort of way, you know, talk to him about that with the podcast equipment. But so thank you guys for joining. Mark will cut it up, and he'll cut up the video so you could watch it, and, you know, watch a shortened version and watch just the countdown itself if you want. But again, I think Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not sure yet, but I know that we're going to be doing our top 10 worst breakups. So running the IG, the Instagram account is Mark. That's all Mark. So, and Justin, you too. Have a good night, man. Azul, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Ziga, hoping so, man. Hoping we hit that and we go for more. But good night, Matt. Good night, Brody. But yeah, so Mark runs the Instagram, and if you guys have any questions, for us next time, definitely give us a call, or definitely give us a call. Wow, I'm shot. But good night, Oleg. Definitely tune in with us on Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know which one it is yet. Like I said, Mark will put up something, and we'll have more stuff for you. Good night, everybody, and let's go Rangers.